So when does this happen?
Why is it in your trunk?
We are going to, the plan is to go to England. I'm waiting for some more information for specifically where we're going and stuff, but right now, as of right now, the plan is to go to England the spring break. Everything's supposed to be set up, so.
How did I not know about this?
Well, it's for, we're going to be going into schools and preaching.
Okay.
So.
I don't know. Now I'm like all excited, but I don't even know if I could go in the first place. It's just like, oh my god, London or England.
You don't have to worry about money if you went, but you have to be ready to. You have to be ready to tell your story. To. These kids don't have any. The idea is going in and bringing Christianity to where it doesn't exist. Because it just doesn't in England. No. Not really. Not in any organized or large way.
No.
You got about 10-20% of the population goes to church ever. They just did a study on the percentage of people who consider themselves very religious. Large 38% of the population thinks religion causes more problems than it solves. And that's probably true. But there's a difference between religion and Christianity as a lived relationship, which is one of the things we're going to talk about today. So, one of the first things the guy asked me, this guy, I've been in this situation before, you got to understand, trained as a Pentecostal minister. I'm not a confirmed Episcopalian, even though I believe in the Episcopal Church. I can't be a confirmed Episcopalian because of promises I made when I got my ministry license, which was that I was going to do my ministry within this field of, and that's true, I'm a Pentecostal minister who works for an Episcopal church. And that's caused me problems before. I've not gotten jobs because that's of who I am. But I believe in the Episcopal Church, and we are going as representatives of the Episcopal Church to other Anglican churches. So one of the first things the guy asks me when I'm talking to him, the guy who runs the whole thing, is, what is your purpose in going? And you could tell he was nervous. He didn't want to ask me the question that he wanted to ask me, which was obvious, which is, are you really a Christian? He said he has a brother-in-law who's an Episcopal priest who does not believe in Jesus Christ. And I'm going to tell you, that's such a problem in the Episcopal Church that almost to the detriment of the church, when it's hiring a priest like we are right now, has to spend a lot of time trying to figure out if the priest they're hiring really believes in Jesus Christ. That is a challenge that the search committee has to deal with right now. So much so that they lose out on asking other questions because you think it would be assumed that the priest does believe in Jesus Christ. You can't assume that in the Episcopal Church. So he was trying to ask me if I'm really a Christian. What's the purpose in going? This is the purpose I told him. This is the purpose we're committed to as we go over. And I want you to hear this. This is exactly what I told him. The purpose, the reason we're going to England, is to invite people into a personal relationship with Jesus Christ so they can experience a fully lived human life. That is the purpose for which we are going to England. So that to invite people into a personal relationship with... That made him happy, by the way. The weight lifted off his shoulders when he heard that. That's what we're going to do. That is the limit in the field in which we are operating. Okay? We're going to talk about this for the next few minutes. What does this mean? All right, first of all, are y'all comfortable with that being the purpose of the trip?
I'm good with it.
Okay? And you're comfortable with that too? So whatever we do over there, if anybody comes and asks us what we're doing, why we're doing it, why we're saying what we're saying, for good or bad, and it's you two and maybe Chloe. If Chloe doesn't show up to these meetings, she's not going. I'm not going to ride either of y'all or her or anybody to be coming here. If it's the four of us, I'm fine with that. I want people here who are just recently. Nathan's bringing 10 people to England, probably 8 kids and some odd adults. He just recently had problems with some of the youth who were supposed to be going. And he went to them and said, if you think you're going to England when you're acting like this, you're crazy. So the idea that there is a standard at which, again, and I want to make something clear. Doesn't make you a better Christian for going. It doesn't make you better than anybody in this group who's not going. I don't think more highly of people who aren't going. But to be prepared to do the work we're going to do, you have to have a certain standard of commitment and everything else. Do y'all understand that?
Mm-hmm.
Which then speaks to why do you, the reason that some people in the group, when I presented this trip, and I'm really upset about it, it's something I failed at, got the idea that I was saying people who want to do this are higher level Christians or something. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the kind of work we're going to be doing. It's the same thing of, I wouldn't take everybody in the youth group to Africa, even if we were just going to build wells, right? People who don't want to go to Africa and not build wells aren't less Christian than people who do want to go to Africa and build wells, for me, right? And incidentally, something Josh was not called to is going to Africa to build wells. Not the work I'm called to. Now, do I look up to people who go to Africa and build wells? Of course I do, because I'd like to know. I would like to be that person who builds wells. That would be cool. It would be something I would like to do. It sounds like great work and probably a very rewarding experience. Not me. Not me. Not Joshua.
Kind of like the Peace Corps thing.
Right, the same thing. And if we did go to Africa to build wells, I would have certain physical requirements that people would have to meet. Guess what? If somebody is suffering from asthma, they might not be able to go on that trip. I don't think they're less of a person because they have asthma, but you got to be prepared for that trip. And these meetings are about preparing for the trip we're going on. So the first thing I have to ask all three of you, and I'm going to tell you what I think. What, in your understanding, what does it mean to invite people into a personal relationship? What does that purpose mean? What does it mean to invite people into a personal relationship with Jesus Christ so they can experience a fully lived human life? Those are just words. What do those words mean?
We'll say what those words mean with words.
Well, you have to.
Yeah.
But
So, personal relationship with Jesus Christ, it's a term that gets used a lot. And so I think the best way to understand what that means is to see it in action. But I guess you can say is that it comes to the point when you've done it enough. For me, I do it through typically through study of the Bible, and through whenever I get angry at someone, I try to think about it in terms of not thinking of their sins as more egregious than my own. And but a lot of that it's through prayer, it's through study, it's through trying to make trying to make Christ the priority in all the things that you do. And so, and to carry that over into living a fully lived human life, it's in a lot of situations it's as simple as saying, even just having, if you're just out at work making a pizza or something, saying, how can I make this pizza in a way that's Christ-like? Which might be putting the right amount of cheese on it, or giving attention to it, but I don't.
that's good. What do you think, Jared?
You saying inviting people or your own personal relationship?
No, what does it mean to invite people into a personal relationship?
I don't want to label it as a job because it almost sounds like it's annoying for us, but it's kind of like what we're supposed to be called to do is spreading the gospel, and that's what I believe the personal relationship is, like the gospel and with what Jesus did for us. And so that personal relationship, like he said, like being more Christ-like, striving to live like him and have him as your focus, because it's like one of those things that even like I work on with my camp friends. We keep in touch and stuff, and it's just like, what did you do today that made you more Christ-like to others? And so it gives you like that opportunity to look back on that and see what you did. And so it's definitely just like living for him and to be more like it. So
Excellent. Taylor, you want to take a stab at it?
And I've been thinking about it, and my thing is, I want people to know that Jesus is love, and I think of all the people who have such a negative opinion of Christianity because of fundamentalists, because of the fire and brimstone thing, and I want them to know Jesus is love. It's not all this other stuff people like to throw out, or the most outspoken people like to throw out. And I would be honest with them and say, I'm still trying to create a very deep and personal relationship with Jesus Christ, because I feel really close to God, but I feel like I want to know Jesus as a separate entity and a person, and feel like Jesus is walking next to me too, not just God and Holy Spirit's in between. So I'd just be outright honest and say, I'm still trying to know him.
I love you all three so much. Y'all are so what it's all about. For me, if somebody asks me what it means to invite people into a personal relationship with Jesus Christ so they can experience a fully lived human life, the first thing, because this is a promise I've made them, that this is what we're going to do. This is the pretext under which we're going, so this has to be focused. The first, I have to talk about my own relationship. For me, having a relationship with Jesus Christ is like having a relationship with anybody. So to have a relationship with Jesus Christ is to talk to Christ and have Christ talk to you. That's what a relationship is. It's talking and doing and living. And Christ talks to me. This is part of my Pentecostal background, and I talk to Christ. And there's a lot of different ways in which Christ talks to me. The Word of God comes to me in a number of ways. Prayer, Scripture reading, interpersonal relationship with other human beings, which connects my relationship with God, visions and voices. All that stuff is an important part of my relationship. So I have and the goal is to make that the most important relationship in my life, which is how much time am I spending with this person, how much time am I spending talking to this person, having this person talk to me, doing for this person, having this person do for me. That's what a relationship. To invite other people is to invite people to have that same kind of interaction with Jesus Christ. So it's very simple. I talk, live with Jesus. Is somebody who's a part of my life on a constant personal basis. And so I want you to have the same thing. And I want you to have that because for me, as far as I know, and I've lived a lot of different lives, in a lot of different ways, there is no better way to live than to live in... For me, I would suggest everybody get married. Because being married has been awesome for me. It's been nothing but a good thing. I mean, there's work and struggle. We've had low points. We've had doubts, all that stuff. But in the overall, marriage kicks ass. And I highly recommend it.
And marriage is
it's the same thing of... Now, I respect and recognize that like a monk or something might have the same experience in their monastic existence. And good for that monk. But I cannot recommend that to anybody else. Because I love the relationship I have with my wife. And so, of course, I'm a booster of marriage. People who go around, whenever I hear somebody on TV, act like marriage is some kind of a trap or something I think, no. I'm a booster of marriage to anybody and anybody who wants to talk about it. I'm yay marriage and pro marriage and find that person. I'm also pro good marriage, which means finding the right person. That's the main thing that's going to determine. So those things I'm a booster of, right? I'm a booster of good food. I think life without good food is not as good as life with good food. And I've known nothing better in my life than my relationship with Jesus Christ. When I say live a fully human life, I mean to get the most that being a human being has to offer in this world. And I do not think that there is a better way than to know God. It's better to know God than not know God. It's better to know Jesus Christ as God than to not. Your life will be better. And that's the only thing I can promise somebody. And if somebody tries it and their life isn't better, I don't know what to say to them because I can't live another person's life. But I'm going to invite anybody I meet into knowing Jesus. That's what those things mean to me. And that's what I'm going to England to do. I want to find little kids, hopefully some teenagers, and go, hey, you don't know Jesus? You don't have that kind of relationship? Walk the path. Walk this path. I'll show you the path you can walk. And at the end of it, St. Augustine said, believe in what you don't see, eventually you will see what you believe. Walk to the end of it, and you will have those experiences. So the next question is, how do we accomplish that? How do we invite people into a personal relationship with Jesus Christ? How do we do that? That's the second question.
It's going to differ person to person, but I think most common methods are going to be probably sharing your own story, what it has done for you, and then if people have barriers or walls, whether they be emotional or intellectual walls to believing or participating in that form of life, doing what you can to help break them down.
Good.
Like me, I went to church when I was 13 because I wanted a spiritual life, and I'm an archaeologist. I believe in evolution. I still believe God created the universe. I believe in Jesus. You can be those things, and even as a teenager, you can have those.
Right, and finding a place where both those things were important for you having a relationship with Jesus
I wanted
Christ.
more mature teenagers to hang out with. That's why I came to youth, because I assumed everyone was more mature
Good.
than school kids.
Excellent.
If we're talking about relationships here, when you ever introduce your friend to another friend, it's just like, this person is this, they like this, and they do this. I mean, you just have to introduce them like there's any other relationship. Like you said, it's like having him as a friend, so.
Fantastic. Yeah, and so you have to form friends first.
Yeah.
And that I think that being relational, and I think that answers the next question. I mean, we have to seek to form relationships with other people, not even as a means to an end. But if I'm friends with you and I have something that makes my life better, I'm going to offer it to you. Just like if you'd never eaten chocolate pie, and I'm a chocolate pie guy, and you've never eaten chocolate pie, I'm like, you have to eat chocolate pie. Or if you've never seen Evil Dead 2, no, you have to see Evil Dead 2. You have to have seen Evil Dead 2. No, you haven't. Here's Evil Dead 2. You have to watch this movie. And it's not because it isn't. Then giving that to a person is an act of love for them. It's not all about bringing. It's not about just bringing for Jesus' sake. It's for their sake. It's like, here's this great thing that you have to try and you have to be a part of because it's just too good to let it pass by. I want to say what we are not trying to accomplish, what we did not tell them we were accomplishing. We are not going, and this is very important. I'm not asking this question because I did not, and you may have this as one of your goals, and that's cool. But this is not what I promised them, that I'm going over there to save anybody's soul. That is not my job. My job is not to save your soul. My job is not to get you into heaven. I couldn't do that if I tried. Most people go over there probably go over there with that very attitude. That's probably the dominant kind of attitude about people who go over there. That's not what I told them we're going to do, and it's not my goal in going to England. Because I don't believe that people that's under human control. I'm a Calvinist on that level, and that's a big deal for me, and I think that that's the Bible, and so I don't go over trying to save souls. That doesn't mean we don't talk about heaven and hell, and I want you to be able to talk about your own personal beliefs about all of that stuff. And we're going to talk about all that stuff later on. I do every couple months, I do Ask Me Anything days at Galloway School, so the kids can ask me anything they want, which I assume is going to be akin to what we're dealing with in England. A lot of the kids aren't Christians. A lot of them are other religions. Some of them don't believe in God, even in a Christian school. I am having them write those questions down. I have a giant bag full of those questions. We're going to be spending a couple of weeks going through those questions, and you will have an opportunity on your own to answer those kinds of questions. But that's not the center of our trip for this church, is to go over and save souls. And I think that's important because how do we go and do this as Episcopalians? That's a very Episcopalian attitude. The Episcopal attitude isn't that we're saving souls. Our attitude is souls were saved on Calvary. Jesus saves souls. Jesus does those things. Episcopalians don't put any formula on how that works. If asked how do I get saved through Jesus Christ, they would sit there and say, read the gospel. That would be their, and that's important. And I think that the reason that matters is if kids are asking you constantly about how do I get into, are you saying I'm going to go to hell? You have the opportunity, and to stay within the context of what we have promised we're going to do, to say, I'm not worried about heaven and hell, man. That's not my job. I'm not here to tell you where you're going to go after you die. I'm not here to tell you what you're going to have. You may tell them. This may be your choice, but you have the opportunity to put that aside in a conversation. And if someone asks me, I'm going to tell them, that's going to be my answer. I'm not here to tell you where you go after you die. I'm not here to take some kind of God's eye view and judge your soul. That's not my job. I'm here to tell you about the greatest, most important relationship in my life. Something that can change your life and change everything about this world for you. A relationship that gives me life and hope and everything else. Do I believe I'm going to heaven? Does that come from Jesus Christ? Yes, of course it does. That's great. That's wonderful. But that's not the focus of my life. I want you to comment on that. On what I just said.
Sounds good.
Like, do you mean only on the afterlife bit, or what are we not trying to accomplish?
No, on the afterlife bit, are y'all okay with it?
My response would be, you really shouldn't worry about the heaven and hell bit, because that's irrelevant if you don't have a life with Christ beside you. Like, you need to enjoy life. You need to experience life, and experiencing it with God means, in my mind, more than that. Heaven and hell, I think, takes care of itself. So.
For me, I think it sounds good because if we accomplish our purpose to get people in a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, then like, what else is there to do?
We can all agree, right?
Yeah.
That if somebody has a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, we can be pretty confident about where their soul's going.
Yeah.
Whatever your detailed beliefs about, right? So that's good. Okay, we and I are wrong.
I mean, when the people go in and say, like, if you don't believe what we're about to tell you, then you're just going to go burn forever. Like, people just don't want to listen anymore.
Right.
So.
It just becomes an
and
impediment.
that's kind of what we've talked about many times, is just how people advertise the heaven and hell thing as a way to lure people in. And I just think that's not a great way to portray Christianity. That's
right.
not a great way to put it. Like, honestly, this is, like, I'm not an expert in the gospel, but I want to go say, read it and examine how much more often they focus on the here and now versus heaven and hell and stuff. And this is an academic thing, but I learned that the concept of hell being a fiery pit wasn't invented until the Middle Ages.
Yeah, I mean,
because before that, it was the concept of being separated from God or living or being in eternal darkness. And that's what hell was.
Right. That's exactly right.
And I'm just like, look at your history.
Yeah.
Look at the gospel more closely.
I agree with you. So here's a question for you personally. What does having a relationship with Jesus Christ give you that you wouldn't otherwise have besides heaven? What does, in each of your life, and I'm just talking about how your life looks differently, because that was the first question I asked all of you. What difference does it make to believe in Jesus Christ? But what does that belief give you that you wouldn't have? What does your relationship with Jesus Christ give you that you wouldn't have otherwise?
I think it gives me the scope to, just in general, to enjoy things. Without it, I feel like everything would be bitter, even pleasures, and I don't think I'd be able to live life. Perhaps at all, at least not happily.
Good. Very well said. Good.
And then I also think it frees me up to be able to do things that I wouldn't do otherwise, to suffer and to die when otherwise my response would be just to run away from that. And I think that makes me a better friend. I think that makes me just a better person, and ultimately I think that makes me have a bigger impact on the community.
And I think if you can have that, if y'all are able to operate when we go over to England on the level y'all are operating here, you're going to do a lot of good, and you're not going to have any problem. Y'all are operating. The key is going to be taking the spirit we have right here in this room right now, and holding it as a bubble as we go over there when you're surrounded by a bunch of kids. Having that exactly how y'all are handling all these questions now. Jared, what about you?
Okay, so besides heaven, I mean, it gives maybe not purpose, but like justification for a lot of things. It's like there's a lot of questions you could have about why am I even doing this in the first place, and it just brings like, I guess, realer element to it of why there's a purpose that even like we want to do stuff like this. It's hard to word. I'm thinking like, I want to do this because like Jesus Christ did this for me, and it's not just going to heaven, but it gives me like you said, like a happier life, a purpose to do something, give me something to do with my life, just like sit around and mope and like play video games all the time, because that's like not what I like to do. Like I go and spend my whole summer doing stuff like this, so I mean, it gives me like purpose and like a justification for that too. So
Excellent.
I just think, and for anyone, whatever religion or belief it is, having a spiritual life in the first place just makes things much more deep, allows you to be in tune with the world, know there's something beyond this. And I don't feel there's a need to go into detail just for the sake. I think has to be a level of mystery to spirituality, whatever your faith is. And then when I think of like what my life would be without faith, I look at my dad, who has a lot of issues, and I'm like, I can't do that. I just can't live a life without faith. And then, that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I do not understand what it means to talk about life having meaning without Jesus Christ. Only the kind of God that Jesus Christ reveals makes sense of our intuition that life means anything.